Hey everyone, this is Mark from Locofy. We're going to be doing a step-by-step walkthrough of how you can quickly turn your designs into production-ready front-end code with Locofy. Locofy adapts to you and your workflow, and that means you can use all your favorite design tools and choose any of your preferred front-end frameworks. We'll start off in the Locofy plugin, where we'll bring your designs to life. And we'll do this by configuring each element's behavior and actions, and also adjusting them for responsiveness across multiple device sizes. Then we'll head over to the Locofy Studio, where you can easily define components and props, and also preview prototypes in live code. Finally, we'll show you how to export your code. So let's get started. Today, we're going to be building a flight booking website, and we're going to call it Fickle Flight. For the demonstration, we'll be converting this Figma design to React code. We've already gone ahead to design a couple screens, which you can see on our Figma canvas over here. So let's take a closer look at the Fickle Flight homepage. This is how the design looks like. And by using the Locofy plugin, we're going to be able to turn a design like this into working front-end code. This means you can preview your design in live code to ensure it looks and feels exactly as you have designed it. And this means no more back and forth between engineers and designers, and no more tedious additional notes to describe your vision of how the product should look and feel. So once you've installed the Locofy plugin from the Figma community, you can then open the Locofy plugin by clicking on the Figma icon on the top left of the Figma app. And then go to Plugins and select Locofy. So if this is the first time you're using the Locofy plugin, you'll have to connect your account by signing in. And once you've done that, you'll see the main screen of the Locofy plugin. Now let's quickly run through what you'll see in the plugin and how it will help you bring your designs to life. Firstly, tagging. For any of your layers, you can tag it as a button, input field, or many more. Next up, you can define the behavior of your layer, as well as how it should look in the different screen sizes. Third, you can define actions and triggers, such as on-click behavior. And finally, you can even drag and drop pre-built components, but this will only be added in the next version of Locofy. Now let's take a closer look at the first widget over here, which is the Tag Layers widget. You can tag elements of your design to make them more interactive, such as buttons, checkboxes, input boxes, and many more. Locofy's AI will automatically detect your selection and make smart suggestions to help you tag your elements super quick. All right, let's look at the next widget over here, which is the Behavior and Responsiveness widget. Right here in the topmost section, you can select different screen widths and define how your layers will look across the various screen sizes. This will ensure that your product is responsive and looks good on all devices. Slightly below, you can handle the look of your element in different states, such as hover, pressed, and inactive state. You can add pre-built animations such as drop shadows and grow. And just a bit further down, you'll also see settings that you'll be familiar with, such as size and position, margin and padding. And you'll also find settings for fill, border, typography, cursor, and even advanced CSS properties for the more technical designers. Cool, so onto the Actions widget. This is where you can define triggers and actions. And for the final widget, drag and drop pre-built components. This will only be built in V2 as mentioned before, so definitely stay tuned for that one. Awesome, now that we've had a good overview of the plugin, let's begin turning the Fickle Flight homepage into production quality front-end code. Alrighty, let's start by bringing this orange search flights button to life. First, let's go ahead and select it. And you'll notice that under the tagging widget over here on the right, our AI has automatically detected that the selected element is a rectangle with words. So that could mean that the element is a link, a button, a text area, or an input field. These smart suggestions will allow you to quickly find the right tag. So let's go ahead and choose button as the correct tag for this element. With Locofy, you're able to seamlessly work with your favorite UI libraries, and we'll see how we can do that later in the demonstration. But for now, we won't be using a UI library for this button, so we'll go ahead and select none. For the basic attributes, we don't want the button to be autofocus or disabled, so we'll leave them unchecked. And let's take a look at the advanced section. Here we can also add advanced attributes if required, but let's skip this as well. So let's go ahead and click on done. Awesome, we're done with the initial tagging of this button. Now let's add a hover effect. We can do that here in the behavior and responsiveness widget. Let's go ahead and click on hover. And let's add a shadow as a pre-built effect. Here we can tweak the drop shadow animation settings to make it look just right. So you can change things like the animation duration, delay, and even the animation curve. So once you're happy with all these settings, let's go ahead and click on done. Cool, now we're back in the behavior and responsiveness widget. Let's go ahead and configure how our button looks in different screen sizes. On mobile, we want to make sure that this button spans the width of the screen. So let's go ahead and click on the mobile tab. It has a default breakpoint of 479 pixels, but you are free to change this number to any breakpoint that you prefer. And any changes that we make below will only be applicable to our element when the viewing device is less than or equal to 479 pixels in width. So if we do want to make our button span the entire width of the screen, we need to change the width to 100%. Awesome. Now let's head back to the default tab. And you'll notice that the button size here is still the original size which we designed for desktop. Awesome, we're almost done. Let's go ahead and define the trigger and action for our button over at the Actions widget down here. Let's select our trigger and choose onClick. And we want this button to link to our search results page, which we have already designed in Figma. So let's click on Change Page as the action. And in the page dropdown, let's select Results as the page. And that's it. Our button is now fully functioning. Do note, however, that our form validation and API integrations have to be inserted manually by the engineers. And they can do so by simply extending the onClick code that was generated by Locofy. So let's have a look to see what else we need to work on. This text over here might be a little bit too big for a mobile screen, so let's take care of this. In our plugin, let's tag it as a text. And for this text, we want to set it as the H1 header. Great, now we're done tagging. Notice that the text is just nice for desktop viewing, but it would be too big for mobile. So under the behavior and responsiveness widget over here, let's head over to the mobile tab to handle the font size there. Great, now scroll down to the typography section over here. And we want to have the font on the mobile be a slightly smaller size at 24 pixels. So let's go ahead and edit that. Nice. Let's just see if there's anything else we need to change here. I think we're good. Now let's move on to the next widget, the Actions widget. I don't think we need any actions for this text layer, so I think we're all done here. If you use UI library components in your workflows, here's where it gets really exciting. With Locofy, you can easily work with your favorite UI libraries like Material Design, Bootstrap, and AndDesign. So let's see that in action with this autocomplete field over here. So under tagging widget, let's scroll down to the custom section and select autocomplete. This time, we're going to tag it as a material UI autocomplete component. On our home page, we have designed it as the filled variation. So let's go ahead and select that at the bottom over here. And for UI library components, we have a really cool interactive preview to show you the changes live. So you can see here, we're using the default dropdown from the UI library. But what if we want to use a custom dropdown that we've already designed? So let's zoom out a bit to find that dropdown. And let's click Change to select our desired dropdown. And that just activated the linking mode, where we can now select the dropdown that we have designed. And this can be a frame, a single layer, or even a group. So let's go ahead and select that. In the pop-up, it will show you a preview of the dropdown you've selected so that you can confirm your selection. Cool, so this looks great. I think we can go ahead and click on Proceed. And let's test out our autocomplete dropdown now in the interactive preview. We can try typing as well to see it in action. Sweet. So as you can see, our autocomplete dropdown is working just fine. Let's try selecting Singapore Changi. Locofy will populate the dropdown values using the values from your design, but engineers can easily replace them with actual data from an API or other sources. So everything looks good here. Let's go ahead and click on Done. And you'll notice after saving, we're taken straight to actions, skipping the whole behavior and responsiveness widget. And that's because the UI library takes care of behavior and responsiveness settings. And by integrating with UI libraries, Locofy is able to help you move even faster when designing your next app. So you don't need any actions here. We're going to move on to the next one. But first, let's zoom in just to see our homepage a little bit better. Cool. And now for the arrival field, we can follow the same flow that we just did for the departure field. Alrighty, let's work on our date field right now. Remember that the first thing we always want to do with an element is to tag it. So let's scroll down and select date and time picker over here. And let's use Material UI again as our library. We'll go ahead and select the first variation over here. And once again, you'll be able to see how it looks using the interactive preview. And right now you can see that we're using the inline mode of the date picker. Let's see if we can change that. Let's try out this dialog mode over here. And the interactive preview above is automatically updated based on any configuration that you change. So it looks like the dialog mode is a pop-up version of the date picker. Doesn't really seem like the dialog mode suits this design, so I'm going to change it back to the inline mode. Cool, this looks good. So let's go ahead and click on Done. And as you can see, our behavior and responsiveness has already been predefined by the Material UI library once again. So looks like we're all done with our date picker. Okay, let's get started on our last field, which is the passenger field. So we're gonna tag it as an input. We're gonna use the Material UI library once again. Select the first variation. And let's change this to a number field instead of a text field. Great. Now, if we click into the field in the interactive preview, you'll notice that there is now a number stepper showing up in the field. And it looks like we're all done with the passenger field. So let's go ahead and click on done. And it looks like we're all done with the fields now. So we just need to make sure that in mobile view, that this form stacks up properly on top of each other. So we can handle that in the behavior and responsiveness widget for the parent group of these 4 fields. So what we want to do is to select on the parent group. We're going to tag this group as a form. And we're going to leave the advanced attributes alone. Click on done. And then let's head into the mobile tab for screens below or equal to 479 pixels. Let's scroll down a little bit just to find the layout section. And change the setting from horizontal to vertical. Cool, now we've handled the stacking for these input boxes, and that's all we need to do. So let's go ahead and click on preview. Welcome to the preview mode, where your design is already rendered in front-end code. You can preview your design at the different screen sizes with the media queries that you've already set. And since it's running on live code, you can also check out the interactions that you've configured. Alrighty, so let's jump right in and let's try out our first field, which is the departure field. So once I click on the field, it is now in focus and I can start typing. You'll notice that the autocomplete field is live in action, and it's suggesting a few airports based on the letter S that I just entered. So let's go ahead and select Singapore Changi as our departure airport. Next, we'll enter Los Angeles into the arrival field. And now let's test out our date picker. Cool. All right, let's try out our passenger field now. You'll see that the stepper is showing up. Let's change this to 2 passengers, and we're all good. All right, finally, let's check out the CTA button. It looks like the hover effect is working perfectly, so let's click on it and see if our trigger and action settings took effect. Nice, so it goes to the intended results page. Let's go back. And since we've set styles for mobile, we can click on the mobile tab to see how it looks on a small device. It looks like the form is stacking up properly, looking good. So with Locofy, it's very easy to view your design just like how your users will see it. You can choose other common screen sizes over here, or you can even click into the sizes and define a specific height and width. And once you're all satisfied with your design, you can sync your project to the Locofy Studio. So the Locofy Studio is actually where developers can easily define reusable components and declare component props. And in future versions, you can also use the Studio to easily bind data to your design. And without further ado, let's go ahead and click on Sync to Project, and we'll head over to the Studio. Hey guys, welcome to the Locofy Studio. Since we've come from the Figma plugin, we're taken straight away to the project that we synced from Figma. You'll see that our homepage design has already been successfully synced to the Studio. So now let's do a quick walkthrough of how to navigate around the Studio. In the top panel up here, we can tell that we're currently in the right project. And over here, we can select the different screen sizes to view your design. At the top right, you can see your team members and who's currently online. The Studio allows seamless collaboration between the designers and engineers on your team. You can also share prototypes that run on live code with the wider team. In the middle over here is your canvas, and you'll see some tabs above for you to switch between the various screens that you've synced from Figma. You can also click on the grid icon on the left over here to get a visual overview of all your screens. On the left panel, you'll see the Layers section. And on the right panel is where you can easily define components and their respective props. Finally, at the bottom, you can see your React front-end code that has been generated by our AI in real time. So the code generated is both for the entire screen and also for the individual components. So by doing it this way, we've made it super versatile for you to extract whatever code you need. There are also tabs for you to quickly switch between the different files over here. And you can also select the front-end framework which you are working with, and the code will be generated according to the framework that you select. And the setting can also be configured at a project level. And for the first version of Locofy, React will be the first front-end framework made available. There are other popular frameworks such as Angular, Vue, as well as some mobile frameworks like React Native, Flutter, Swift, and Kotlin. Those will be added in the near future. And we're almost done here. You can also click on the settings icon over here, which will show you more options that will allow you to seamlessly adapt to your team's coding style. And that is the overview of the Locofy Studio. Cool. So let's get started on our Fickle Flight project by selecting the Paris card over here. And we want to declare this group as a component. And we can do that by clicking the link icon here in the right-hand panel. We'll need to give a name to our new component. And the Locofy Studio automatically provides a suggestion for the name based on the current layer name, which is destination card. That works here. So let's go ahead and click on create. And let's just wait for a couple seconds for the code to be generated. Cool. Now you'll see that we have a pair of new TSX and CSS files for this component. And on the left-hand layer panel, there is now a component icon next to the layer name. And this indicates that it's already been converted into a component. So that's great. We can now go ahead and add props for this component. So we'll want to dynamically update the text inside the card. So let's create a value prop. And then we'll select Paris from the dropdown. And once again, the prop name has been auto-populated based on the layer name. But let's change this one to destination name. All right, so here you will also see a field for the studio value. So this is just a temporary value that will hold just inside of the Locofy Studio, and it's merely to render the preview. You can also set a default value for this prop and declare its data type. Okay, it looks like we're all done. Let's just go ahead and click on save, and you'll see here that a value prop has been added for our destination card component. So that looks good. You can always create more props for this component for any value that we want to populate dynamically, such as the background image or price. But for now, we're good to move on to the next card, which is Greece. For this Greece card, we'll want to reuse the same component that we just created. So let's go ahead and click the button to turn this into a component. And you'll see that on the top of being able to create a new component, we can also select an existing component. So let's click on destination card. And as you can see, the prop destination name we've created earlier is also present for this card now. So let's try again with another component. And these icons are going to be buttons which users can click to help them easily prepare for a flight. So let's get started with the pink hotel icon. And we're going to turn this into a component. Let's hit the create component button. And we're going to call this trip option. And let's hit create. Now let's add some props to it. Let's do it for the hotel label. So we'll go ahead and add a value prop. Click on hotel. And we'll name this prop as label. And its studio value will be hotel. So we're going to go ahead and hit save. Nice. Now we've added a value prop for this component. And as you can see, the colors of the icons can also vary. And in Locofy, you can add style props, which will tell the component how to dynamically style the elements within. So let's give that a try right now. Let's select rectangle from the dropdown. And you'll see a dropdown of the common CSS properties. In this case, let's go ahead and select color, hit save, and we've just created a value prop and a style prop. You can also create action props if required. So once you're done with creating all your components and adding props, you can then hit the export button to download your production-ready front-end code. On this final checkout screen, you can select screens that you want to export, or click the toggle to select individual components to export instead. Further down, you can double-check the framework you've selected, as well as your code framework settings. You'll also see an estimate of the time and cost saved from using Locofy. And finally, when you've confirmed your selections and settings, you can simply hit download zip file or add to GitHub repo to export all your files. And from here, your engineers can stitch the front-end code with their APIs and business logic layer. On average, we've seen this saving engineering teams about 40 to 50% of their time writing code. Awesome, we've come to the end of our walkthrough. Thank you so much for following through, and we really hope this has been helpful to you. With Locofy, generating production quality front-end code from your designs can be done quickly and easily. We're looking forward to seeing what you will build at 2 times the speed. So check out the description below to find out how you can get access to Locofy. Have a great day, everyone.